Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Gordon Smith. I'm a past president of the Southern African Institute of Mining Metallurgy. I currently serve on council and am a founder member of the Environmental, Social Governance and Sustainability Committee, the ESGS committee, and I have the pleasure of being your webinar chair for today's session. Thank you for being with us, and I hope it turns out to be a productive and interesting period that we share together. This session is focused on one topic, the circular economy, opportunity and benefits, and will be presented by Mr. Stephen Bullock of Anglo American Platinum. But before I introduce Stephen, I'd like to just make a few comments about SIEM and ESG and sustainability. When you think about it, the principles of environment, social governance and sustainability, ESGS, are not new to us as individuals or as an industry, but they have assumed a new level of importance to business and society in the wake of climate change, ever-widening inequality, global uncertainty, and increasing economic risk. As an institute, we see it as our mandate to inform, to educate, and to convene our members through dialogue and debate on these critical issues. The SIMM Council has approved and brought into being the SIMM ESGS Committee, the mandate of which is to guide, educate, and inform our members of the pillars, the tenets, and dimensions of ESGS in mining, and to be seen as thought leaders in its progressive evolution for our mining sector. Significantly, in line with the importance of ESG to the minerals industry, we have also agreed on full membership of the SIMM now being open to mining industry ESG practitioners. Please join the SIMM if you're not a member already. Ultimately, ESGS, or responsible mining, needs to achieve the same status as safety and the widely accepted concept of zero harm, and so become a fundamental part of our mining DNA and the way we behave as professionals. In fulfilling our mandate, we've established the ESGS webinar series. This is one of them, and we'll have an annual SAIMM journal edition, which is dedicated to ESGS papers, coupled with monthly commentary on ESGS related themes, in addition to the normal conferencing activities. So we look forward to your active support and participation in our programs. We as individuals make a difference. Right, Stephen, welcome. Thank you very much for agreeing to present on your webinar topic around the circular economy, opportunities and benefits. Stephen is employed as Anglo American Platinum's Head of Sustainable Impact, a position he's held since August last year. Prior to this, Stephen has held the positions of a technical assistant in the CEO's office, acting executive head of corporate affairs, head of sustainability, and before that was the regional environmental manager at Anglo American Platinum's Rustenburg operations. After graduating with a BSc Honours degree in environmental geochemistry from the University of Natal, Stephen joined the mining industry, where he worked for the past 28 years in the sustainable development, environmental management, and geological fields. During these years, he's worked on tin, gold, coal, and most recently platinum mines, and is a registered professional natural scientist. He has also completed a master's degree in sustainable development at Stellenbosch University. Stephen, as a long-time work colleague of mine and as a personal friend, is very well positioned, eminently positioned to talk to us on the circular economy, opportunities and benefits. Stephen, I'm going to pass over to you now and switch off my mic and my video, and we're in your hands. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Gordon. And I'm just going to share my screen. So first, if you can just confirm if you can hear and see the presentation.
Yes, hear you and see the screen. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity to present to you on the circular economy. Now, certainly, I'm not an expert in the circular economy, but I can certainly share with you a lot of the work that we as Anglo American and Anglo American Platinum are doing to better understand the circular economy and what opportunities and benefits that represents to us. And I think much of that you might then be able to find useful in your own organizations. So I'll briefly touch on what the challenge is to society. I'll then look at the circular economy sort of 101 and some of the materials we use in the company to increase our level of awareness around the circular economy. I'll then touch on what some of the trends are globally that we are seeing in the mining and metals sector space and what that means for us. And then lastly, specifically share with you some of the detailed projects that we at Anglo American and Anglo American Platinum have got going. So that's what I'll touch on today. So just briefly, policymakers and governments and societies are exploring more sustainable economic models. Our economic growth projections as a global society are outpacing global resource supply. An analysis shows that the total demand for resources is expected to reach about 130 billion tons by 2050, up from 50 billion in 2014, and an overuse of the Earth's total capacity by more than 400%. I mean, in short, our economic growth trajectories are simply unsustainable. The world doesn't have enough resources. I mean, interestingly, by 2030, there's going to be about 2.5 billion new consumers joining the middle class. And as you can see from that graph, the more a society or a country has in the middle class, the higher resource utilization that takes place. However, there's certainly opportunities. If you have a look at some of the numbers on this slide, global society, we are extremely wasteful. About 31% of the food, for example, that we generate goes to waste in the value chain. About 30% of the value in steel is lost after its first phase of recycling. And so clearly, all of these inefficiency numbers indicate that there are opportunities for us as a society to be more efficient in the way we go about doing things. If you have a look then also based on work done by the United Nations, they also show the huge opportunity that the circular economy offers, about a $4.5 trillion economic opportunity by their assessments, through us actually avoiding waste generation, stimulating new business growth, and then obviously creating the so-called green job opportunities that the circular economy presents us. So really, one of the things we've got to do is decouple growth from resource use. And we have to eliminate waste in all its forms, including inefficiencies, and needs to be identified and reduced to the absolute maximum. Among the approaches to mitigate that scale of consumption, including its adverse effects on social development and climate, and contributing to achieving a decarbonized economy, is the circular economy. The circular economy is about minimizing waste in all its forms and making the most of what we have, natural resources included, and it is more than just recycling. That's a very important point. It advocates reusing, redesigning, sharing, repairing, refurbishing, remanufacturing, and recycling, consuming fewer resources in the first place, and then using them for longer. At a fundamental level, it's about transforming the linear business models that society has depended on for so long and built on the principle of take, make, and dispose into models that are regenerative by design. So the shift from the linear to the circular value chains has the potential to impact all aspects of mining, and it requires us to rethink. We've got to rethink more efficient operations, addressing the value lost through byproducts of business processes across energy, emissions, water, and waste. We've got to look at new products and services, rethinking the design, life cycle, and end of life stage of a product or service to optimize the usage and close the loop. We've got to change ecosystem dynamics, collaborating and partnering with public and private sector peers to create an enabling environment for collective transformation. Sorry, my slide's just battling to change here. So to decouple growth from resource use, waste and conventional linear processes needs to be identified across 4 key dimensions. First, wasted resources. And you'll see on the slide there's a couple of examples around renewable energy, solar, etc. We've got to then, the second dimension is wasted capacity. The third is wasted life cycles. And 4 is wasted embedded value. And this helps us create a framework through which to assess circular economy opportunities. So circular economy theory tells us that 5 circular business models are the key to circular value creation along the entire value chain across circular supplies, sharing platforms, products as services, product life extension, and recovery and recycling. And I'll later show you what we at Anglo American are doing across these 5 areas. And if you are looking at structuring your organization's circular economy strategy and plans, this is a useful framework against which to do that. So an effective circular economic model globally creates value for industry across 4 broad areas. That's increase in profits from incremental revenues, cost savings to the industry, revenue shift, and average operating margins. So that's what it means for business. But then you can see there's a whole raft of value for the broader society. And then that's ultimately what the circular economy is intended to achieve, is a more sustainable society. So moving on now to what some of the external trends and drivers are in the circular economy space globally. Circularity is growing in prominence on the global agenda and being embraced by downstream customers and many of our customers in the mining industry. And this is then obviously having an impact back on mining. Momentum is building, and I'll share later what some mining companies are doing as this momentum builds in the circular economy space. Society expectations are growing. Customers are increasingly demanding sustainable, ethical, sourced commodities in their products. And investors are also ranking companies by their sustainability criteria and ESG performance. And then you'll see there's regulatory pressures are increasing and demand patterns for metals are shifting. I'll now touch on a few of these aspects. So the circular economy related policy is driving downstream innovation on recycling and resource recovery, causing a reduction in demand for primary metals across key markets versus sort of businesses as usual. And certainly in the PGM space, it's been more than 2 decades now that recycling of PGMs, in particular from autocats, has had a marked impact on the demand for primary PGMs. And so looking now at just some of those regulatory drivers in some of the demand countries for our metals specifically. Europe and Asia are leading the circular economy leading on circular economy regulations, while North America tends to lag at a federal level, but there are certain leading practices at some of the states, for example, in California. The European Union has a comprehensive policy framework in place for circular economy investments, programs, and partnerships, and has very strong circular economy action plan as a result of the Green Deal. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this detail. These slides are available that you can read in your own time. But I think what I'm trying to show here is that this is certainly a growing trend, and increasingly the circular economy aspects are finding their way into government's policy. Specifically in the automotive sector, which is obviously a sector we in the PGM space watch very carefully. Still around about 70 to 75% of all PGMs across the full suite of PGMs go into the automotive sector, and you'll see that there's a shift in automotives, and they're driven by policy changes encouraging the OEMs to adopt circularity. The EU has the end-of-life vehicle directive set obligatory targets of 95 recyclability per vehicle by weight by 2025. And you can see this is then driving certain behavior amongst Renault and Volvo. In China from 2019, OEMs would have been penalized unless they meet quotas for zero and low carbon emission vehicles. And then the extended producer responsibility policies and taxation is incentivizing the electronics industry specifically to prioritize recovery and recycling. And so what this means for many metals that mining companies mine is, I think there is going to be a growing trend seeing more metals coming back into the market through secondary supply, and therefore reducing the need for primary supply, reducing, not moving away from that. And then the policy to minimize the footprint of the construction industry, again, is going to have an impact on metals manufacturing. I mean, for example, the European Union Waste Framework Directive of 2008 targets 70% construction waste to be reused or recycled. That was a target to have been achieved 2 years ago. And then China again has certain plans. I mean, interestingly enough, a lot of the thinking around the circular economy it actually has been led by China, and China was one of the first nation states to introduce circular economy principles into their national policy. If we have a look, then there's a strong demand pool for recycled metals, and as I mentioned, that will impact primary production. And the key drivers for this are lower emissions with recycled material versus primary material. So, you know, for example, the International Platinum Group Metals Association has just completed a life cycle analysis that shows the carbon footprint associated with recycled PGMs versus the carbon footprint associated with primary metal. And clearly the recycled metal loop shows a significantly lower carbon footprint. So that gets a lot of the automotive OEMs quite excited and wanting to know, you know, how they can preferentially procure recycled material versus primary material. And through those industry associations, we're still working with a number of the OEMs to make it clear that, primary mining and metals are still needed in the system. And then you can see what on the right-hand side there, what a number of the OEMs are doing in this space. Then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, certainly recycling of PGMs is not new and has had a marked impact on the primary production for close to 2 decades now. And those pie charts on the left-hand side show more or less what the recycling of PGMs, the different PGMs back into the market is. And there's effectively been a 4-fold increase in secondary supply of PGMs from around about 500,000 ounces in 2000 up to 2 million ounces in 2012. And you may wonder why I reflect on data through to 2012 is that because of this marked increase and that 4-fold increase over that period, it did have a significant impact on PGM prices and forecasting of many of the PGM primary producers at the time. And because we as primary PGM producers were, forecasting just continued demand for primary supply, we actually end up by supplying loss-making ounces onto the global PGM market. And it was from around about 2012 onwards that a number of the primary PGM producers had to go through quite fundamental restructuring of their businesses. And so this is just an example of how mining companies certainly do need to monitor and evaluate the implications of what the circular economy may or may not have on their primary business. Then also, certainly one of the things we're monitoring very closely in this space is the innovation or innovative business models that have and are emerging and require us to keep an eye on for new opportunities. And especially in Asia, an ecosystem of green startups focused on e-waste recycling is emerging. These market entrants disrupt established processes along the value chain. A number of startups are launching new solutions to collect end-of-life devices from consumers, for example, via smart unmanned collection machines or by digitally connecting individuals to licensed pickup services. And other startups are piloting green leaching technologies to improve the recovery of metals from e-waste whilst reducing hazardous waste. So we're continuing to monitor these developments in the circular economy to both seek out opportunities potentially for our business, as well as to see threats to potentially new demand for our metals. Right, so moving on. Global miners are now developing stronger circular economy positions in our view, focusing on operational efficiencies and partnerships. But it's kind of our submission or view that the circular economy is yet not a strategic priority in most of the major mining companies globally. The global mining majors continue to focus on operational efficiencies, but to some extent are now starting to announce partnerships and circular economy efforts. Market-facing initiatives are growing. For example, the Tesla BHP partnership. Rio is becoming more active, and Glencore has strategic advantages due to its cobalt exposure and smelting capacity. And in general, the circular economy is an active discussion topic, I mentioned, but not yet a strategic priority. Then there's opportunities emerging across all stages of the value chain, with innovation being driven at limited or pilot scale in metals and technology companies. there are a wide range of circular opportunities to tap into across all stages of the mining and metals value chain. And innovations are being driven at limited scale or at pilot level at this stage within metals companies and technology players along the mining value chain. And I mean, you could, for example, our hydrogen truck at Mogalakwena is just one example of those. Then the circular economy initiatives and operations are moving beyond energy and water as innovators are capitalizing on recovery of value from existing waste streams. And the circular economy supports continued focus on resource efficiency. Suppliers are innovating to support circular models for consumables and capital equipment. And then innovators are also capitalizing on recovery of value from existing waste streams. Then there's rapid downstream innovation towards new ownership models and circular services and product stewardship with uncertain impact on demand. So that's certainly a trend we're seeing. Opportunities downstream move beyond traditional scrap recycling with new ownership models, circular services and product stewardship initiatives emerging. End customer expectations are changing fast, requiring disclosure on commodity origin and support to implement more circular models themselves. And that's where things like blockchain are playing a key role, as is IRMA in our case. And then demand impacts are uncertain and vary sort of widely per commodity from our analysis. And then cross-industry circular pioneers demonstrate strategic focus and commercial differentiation by investing in new capabilities such as partnerships, consumer capacity, and technology, where the leaders have established their vision, targets, and commercial differentiation. Many have invested significantly in R&D and downstream partnerships in order to support their customer delivery on circularity. And then new capability partnerships, consumer-centric approaches, and technology are going to be required with a mix of organic and inorganic approaches. So certainly there are a lot of developments, and we're keeping a close eye on these. I'm not going to discuss this slide in any detail, but it does offer a useful framework of what is being focused on across the metals value chain, much of which I've just touched on in the previous slide. And as you potentially explore circular economy opportunities in your particular businesses or areas, this might be a useful framework. Okay, so yeah, in summary, what are these trends? You know, circular economy leaders demonstrate common characteristics. They have a clear vision of the circular economy and their role within it, with strong commercial targets. Significant reinvention of core business through the lens of circularity. Strong focus on disseminating an understanding of the circular economy within their business and employee culture. Appetite for incorporation of new business models. Substantial focus on R&D efforts to drive circular innovation and change. And then placing the customer firmly at the center of any circular initiative and change. And these brands that are shown up on the screen are certainly held out as leaders in the circular economy space. Okay, so what are we at Anglo American and Anglo American Platinum doing in the circular economy? We have a number of strategic initiatives at the heart of our company's purpose, and these are all fully aligned with the principles of the circular economy. Future Smart Mining is delivering a step change in innovations in technology, digitalization and sustainability to transform the future footprint of mining across the entire value chain, significantly reducing that footprint. Our P101 operational efficiency program has a transformational approach to improving productivity and eliminating waste across all of our assets and processes, continually pushing beyond the benchmark performance. Land rehabilitation through topsoil cultivation and water reuse, prioritizing repurpose of end of life of mines as part of broader remit to support local communities. And then our ongoing transition towards metals and minerals with support, which supports a greener, cleaner, more sustainable world, reducing our energy consumption and intensity and increased use of renewable energy. And so this slide here just shows you, and I had this model a little bit earlier around the Circular Economy 101 slides. And you can see that we've positioned a number of different programs across the group, across those 5 main areas. And we have our AP Ventures program that's looking at new startup investments in the hydrogen economy space. As Anglo American Platinum, we've got the R&D related to our hydrogen haul truck at Mogalakwena. We've announced our renewable energy transition program that will see us being carbon neutral by 2040. And then we have our zero waste to landfill program. And perhaps I'll spend a bit of time on this, and this was something that we implemented specifically at Anglo American Platinum, where we've been able to achieve zero waste to landfill at all of our managed operations by 2021. The journey to zero waste to landfill actually began with us making the commitment in 2013, and was underpinned by a progressive shift in our approach to waste management. The project has prevented many types of wastes from going to landfill, including scrap metal, plastic, paper, cardboard, empty paint tins, glass, fuel, fluorescent tubes, bulbs, and construction materials, and also included electrical scrap and cables. So at a landfill site, decomposition processes release greenhouse gases, as you know, such as methane. And as a result of this, reduction in waste to landfill, we've significantly reduced greenhouse gas emissions. So through the Zero Waste to Landfill initiative, we've had annual savings in avoiding transport and disposal costs of around about 32 million rand per annum. And then waste streams such as food packaging, mixed waste are used in refuse-derived fuel in our facilities, while building rubble is used as a resource at the clinker steel and waste management facility. Other innovations include separating the components of air filters for recycling, reusing flux. And then we worked extensively with suppliers to actually also reduce the volumes of waste that come onto our operations. And we continue to innovate and explore environmentally friendly technologies. For example, at our Unki mine in Zimbabwe, where there are limited offset or recycling opportunities external to the operations, we've implemented a small-scale incinerator to thermally treat waste that cannot be reused or recycled. And we've introduced a biodigester to generate biogas through the sustainable treatment of biodegradable waste, which has set a leading example for other institutions. And Mogalakwena mine is upscaling an initiative that successfully trialed in 2021 to produce compost using suitable materials generated at its site. And the compost is used to improve the conditions of soil used for rehabilitation instead of buying fertilizers, which are obviously chemically based. Then across the broader Anglo-American group, we've introduced the circular lab concept to help drive initiatives across our business. And what we've done through the circular lab is we've set up a fund where employees can then apply for access to that funding to drive their circular economy related ideas internally. And so through the circular lab process, we certainly encourage employees from across the organization to come up with ideas. They then submit those ideas to a small panel of people who evaluate them, see if it needs to be tweaked, whether it meets the criteria. Ultimately, there's a judging, and funds from the circular lab fund are then made available for individuals or for teams to take their idea forward. And we've now been running the circular lab. We're into our third year of implementing this program. And so in closing, it's certainly worth us in the mining industry imagining what if across certain key steps in the circular economy. For example, what if we can rethink our approach to water usage using new technologies and designing new ways, to eliminate and deliver waterless mining. What if we can plan work to make use of every last drop of capacity in our processes and equipment? What if we can partner with product manufacturers to innovate and help provide the services society needs more efficiently? So all of these what if questions are driving the way we think about our approach to the circular economy in Anglo-American and Anglo-American Platinum. And certainly we think that it is an evolving space, and we will continue to seek out opportunities that the globe's desire to be more sustainable offers us as a business. So Gordon, I think that's probably enough theory for an overview of what we at Anglo-American Platinum are doing. I have included a few other examples of what some other organizations are doing, that attendees on the webinar may find useful, but otherwise happy to take questions and enter into a discussion. Thank you.
Stephen, thanks very much. Really informative, great slides, great presentation. Thank you. A good balance of the informative aspects, almost like a theory base, then the sharing of what is happening in the industry and the market, and finally the specifics of how Anglo-American and how Anglo-American Platinum are taking those concepts into their business and their strategy. I've got some closing comments right at the end, but what I would like to do is see if there's anybody out there amongst the participants, and those of you who have chosen to in fact become panelists are able to participate by putting up your hand, and one of the coordinators in the SIMM office will then indicate that they can take your question. But as Stephen's indicated, I'm sure he's wide open to questions from anybody. Thoughts, perspectives. If you don't have a question, where are you with your organization? Would be an interesting participation. So we are open to commentary. I see a hand up with Martin Creamer. Gugu, are you controlling it on the other side? We are quiet from the SIMM. Martin, if you can hear me, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, got you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Normally with mining activities, say in the field of safety, the mines are prepared to share everything. They don't see it as some intellectual property thing that they hold on closely to. With the circular economy, and you see those labs and activities going on, wouldn't it be good for the mining industry, maybe through even the international body, to share all this, or are they doing it already?
Thanks, Martin. Stephen, do you want to pick up some of that?
Yeah, look, so certainly in preparing for this share today, I specifically tried to, obviously give useful models and tools that, our peers can use. And we would certainly encourage that a lot of this is not necessarily a competitive space. I mean, clearly, we're once seeking out business opportunities, then that's a different matter altogether. But the PGM industry, specifically around some of the circular economy challenges, through the International Platinum Group Metals Association, is sharing information and ideas that aren't deemed by the competition authorities to be, anti-competitive in any way. And therefore, we have worked collectively on an industry-wide life cycle assessment for primary production, as well as for secondary production. And then we continue to engage the fabricators and the regulators on a number of these aspects, collectively.
Because I always imagine this to be quite a job-intensive area. I mean, South Africa is so short of jobs. We see people going around the street collecting things. Could this not be done in a much more coordinated manner, perhaps, if we take it to higher levels and turn this into real urban mining?
And I'm sure people will see those opportunities. If one has a look at those Asian examples I shared, I think that's where entrepreneurs in Asia have certainly seen that opportunity and jumped at them.
I think if I could come in there as well, I think there's also a case of there needs to be an increased maturity around these aspects of the circular economy, and also progressive evolution, which is what happened in the safety space. It took a long time for all of that to open up and be shared. And I think the pace of that is what could be impacted by mining companies and by people who, like yourself, Martin, who communicate widely and influence outcomes around, yes, there must be elements which can be brought forward and shared and in a coordinated manner and improve the pace of adoption. So yeah, supportive of that thought. Just before we swing to Mike Solomon, I just want to see there's a question on the chat that came up from Quinn Reynolds. I think it's Reynolds. I can't see the rest of the name on the screen. Thanks for an interesting presentation, Stephen. You mentioned recycled platinum has been shown to have a lower carbon footprint. Does one get similar carbon savings for other commodities too, or is it unique to PGMs?
Yeah, generally the manner in which the various commodities have gone about their life cycle assessments is that secondary and recycled metals has a significantly lower carbon footprint. And that's why generally in the automotive space in particular, the automotive industry is clamoring for this recycled metal, because particularly as one starts seeing a shift towards battery electric vehicles. Battery electric vehicles are much more resource intensive to manufacture, and therefore leave the shop floor with a much higher carbon footprint than the internal combustion engine does. And so what the automotive industry is trying to do at the moment is identify in its supply chains where it can procure metals that come with a much lower carbon footprint, so that battery electric vehicles and internal combustion engine vehicles can potentially leave the shop floor with the same carbon footprint. But if one has a look at the recent PwC mining report that showed how much metal goes into a battery electric vehicle, I think it'll be a while before a battery electric vehicle leaves the shop floor with the same carbon footprint as an internal combustion engine. But that's, yeah. Anyway.
Thanks, Stephen. And then there was a follow-on question from that one, which I'll just pick up and say, are there significant opportunities for further decarbonisation of recycling flow sheets? My response is there must be. A lot of the work that I'm doing at the moment is looking at decarbonisation opportunities and projects. And once people apply themselves to it with a different lens, you know, the way you view a challenge determines how you tackle it, determines the outcome. If you view it on the basis of, oh, there has to be something there that we can uncover, you can invariably find it. So I think there's a very positive response on that. So Prof. Solomon, if you'd like to come on, please. Mike, your hand's up, but we're not hearing you.
Apologies. Let's go back to Martin's question about the whole question of collaboration in the industry. Anglo American and Exara and CSR and a number of other organizations put together the Impact Catalyst, and one of the potential streams for collaboration on a very constructive level is with Impact Catalyst is the whole question of circular economy, particularly insofar as it involves the common communities that clusters of mines actually. So I think there's a huge amount of potential for collaboration between mining companies in the circular economy space. Then the second thing I wanted to pick up, Gordon, which is just the issue that you just raised, is the question of waste to energy, is that there's an increasing amount of technology coming into the market between the OTR process, the tire and plastic recycling or plastic programs that Anglo is already doing, but in looking at not only recycling plastic, but using plastic and rubber as a source of synthetic oils and other forms of energy. And the interesting part of that is that if one looks at the Anglo zero waste landfill program, is that there simply is not enough waste on the mines to do these programs at the scale that they need to be done. So there's the potential for the mining companies to collaborate with surrounding municipalities in the sorting and collection of waste, particularly with respect to the waste pickers that you mentioned, Martin, and creating a certain amount of, a significant amount of employment in that particular space. So the waste to energy is something that I wanted to ask Stephen about. First of all, how far are you in your waste to energy thinking in the first instance? And I'm also interested in your anaerobic digested unki. I wasn't aware that you had a digested unki, and what your feedstock is there and what you're using the gas for.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Yeah, so certainly, you know, as you touch on around the waste to energy, we have a number of different initiatives going. So globally, Anglo American has a program around the use of tires. There was a recent investment made through our marketing function into a business in Kenya, in Nairobi, that is working extensively with the local municipality there to be able to actually recover the waste from the towns and informal settlements around Nairobi and turn that into a number of different products that can be reused. And then why Anglo specifically is interested in that is that we get access to the carbon credits and enables us to trade or offset those carbon credits. And we're now busy in the process of trying to identify where that proven approach in Nairobi can be used around our operations, potentially here in South Africa, working in collaboration with with local governments and the likes to be able to get the volume of waste needed for them to be beneficial. And from initial discussions around that, there's certain opportunities potentially at Rustenburg, as well as the sort of Polokwane, Mokopane area. So that's where we are with that at the moment.
Thanks, Stephen.
The other question I asked is the anaerobic digester at Unki, is the feedstock for that digester and what you're using the gas for.
Oh, okay, yeah. So look, certainly at Unki, it's from the purified sewage sludge, as well as the other organics. And then I'll need to just check with what they're physically using the gas for and get back to you on that.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Stephen. It's always interesting in these sessions where we all get put on the spot in some way or the other. So thank you. Martin, you've still got your hand up. We've got time for another question from you before I start closing down. I do want us to finish on time. I know we all have busy diaries.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, if we compare the footprint of the battery electric vehicle to the fuel cell electric vehicle, what does that sort of equation look like?
Yeah, look, so some research has been done on that, and funny enough, through the International Platinum Group Metals Association, we're busy commissioning a piece of work around exactly that to get some more detailed numbers. I mean, clearly the fuel cell electric vehicle will be highly dependent on where, and I mean, I guess the battery on where one gets the energy from. You know, is it green hydrogen or blue or what? But we'll work through, through that. But indicatively and from certainly other studies that have been done, the view is that the fuel cell electric vehicle across the full life cycle has a lower carbon footprint
than the battery electric vehicle.
Correct.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Martin. That's great. Setabile.
Yeah, it's a quick one. Yeah, Stephen, just a question. Some countries are reviewing their approach to recycling because it's seen to be promoting some of the premature recycles of the metals. What's your view on that, on this issue that we've got?
Sorry, just repeat that again.
Some countries are reviewing their approach on the recycling of metals because it is seen to be promoting some premature recycles of the metals. They're not allowed to reach their full life in whatever installation they may be in. They are, short-circuited back into the cycle.
Ah, okay, sure. Look, I've learned something on that. I'm going to have to pick that up. I mean, I know that certainly there's other issues related to recycling and theft of metals and getting it into recycled loops, but I haven't heard of that policy shift. So I'll have to read up on that myself.
Thanks, Setabile. It's nice for you to keep us on our toes. Right, what I'd like to do is I'd like to close now. I have a little bit of vested interest here. I've got an important meeting I need to get to in 4 minutes' time. So my closing comments is really to say, not upfront, Stephen, thank you very much. You've come out with a very professional presentation, great content, handled the questions nicely, and shared an immense amount of information and knowledge with the 56 odd people that are on the call the last time I looked. So thank you very, very much. From my side, what I sort of summed up here was that you could look at it and say, much of the change that we're experiencing is really being driven by legislation, but it's underpinned by deep social sentiment. What it does mean is it's a reality for all of us in our future going forward. There's just no debate about it. And how do we drive an appropriate change? And part of that change can be driven by what we demand as consumers. Very importantly, of actually putting out what we want and what we don't want in terms of circularity. And then also how, as businesses, we strategically position our businesses. We need to educate our youth and drive change through the next generation. What it means is a complete reinvention of business and how we personally view our lives based on circularity. We, as a world, will not be able to produce all that is required for the anticipated growth without changing the way we do things. So thank you, everybody, for attending. And we look forward to you attending another ESGS webinar. I'm not certain if I will be chairing the session, and I actually can't recall what the next topic is on, but there will be one, and you'll receive notice, and I look forward to your support. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. And once again, thank you very much, Stephen. Cheers all.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.